You're always out and about, leaving the house in a mess. I'm out working all day, starving, and when I come home there's no meal prepared. That's just not right. I'm sorry, I just finished work and I'm on my way home. When I said that, my husband yelled at me furiously. Are you kidding me? You know I come home hungry. It's your job as my wife to have dinner ready and be waiting for me at the door. I work full-time too, I can't do that. As I argued back, he scoffed at me with a tone of derision. That's because you're inefficient, isn't it? I'm working hard and earning $900 every month. I am Abigail, 35 years old, a working mother, married for 5 years. We live in the house left by my parents who died 7 years ago, with my husband Paul, who is the same age. We met at our usual bar. He approached me when I was drinking alone. At first, I thought he was just hitting on me and brushed him off, but he was persistent, and eventually we started drinking together. He was kind and gentlemanly, always listening to me vent without getting annoyed. He was there for me when I was feeling down after my parents' tragic accident. Spending time with him gradually became irreplaceable for me. I decided I wanted to spend my life with my kind-hearted husband and got married. Our in-laws were delighted about our marriage, and I thought we were going to be happy. However, once we started living together, I realized he believed in the traditional husband earns, wife takes care of the home philosophy, like an old-fashioned, hen-pecked husband. He wouldn't agree to share household chores and push everything onto me. Even if I was busy with work and came home late, he never helped with housework and criticized every little imperfection. The only reason you're working is because you're bad at managing things. As the head of the family, I'm doing my part. It's your most important role to manage the housework perfectly. Don't use work as an excuse to neglect your duties. He berated me with harsh words. Despite multiple attempts at discussion, he never budged from his beliefs. One day, as I was heading home from work, my mobile phone rang unexpectedly. It was a call from my husband. As I hastily answered the phone, my husband's irate voice came through, loud and crackling. Where have you been, leaving the house in such a state? I'm out all day sweating at work, coming home starving. And there's no meal ready? That's just not right. I'm sorry, I'm just finishing up work and I'm on my way now. If you're hungry, there are some snacks in the cupboard. Can you wait a little while? As I suggested this, my husband fuming yelled back, Do you think this is a joke? You know I come home hungry. It's your duty as my wife to have dinner ready and greet me at the door. I'm working full-time too, I just can't do that. As I defended myself, he mocked me with a disdainful tone. That's just you being inefficient, isn't it? I work hard and bring home $900 every month. You should be more grateful to me, the breadwinner. $900 isn't enough to live on. I told you countless times. Just then it started to rain, contrary to the clear forecast in the morning. Reluctantly, I tried asking my husband to help out. Could you please bring in the laundry? It started to rain. His response dripped with exasperation. What? You can't expect me to do such tedious tasks. That's your responsibility. Our budget is tight because you can't manage it properly. I earn enough, but I allow you to work because of your demands. Don't you dare slack on your household duties. I'm hungry and irritated. I'm going out to grab some food and hit the slots. With that, he hung up without waiting for my reply. I sighed heavily and trudged home. Arriving, I found the laundry completely soaked from the rain, left abandoned on the balcony. Disheartened, I gathered the wet clothes and threw them into the washer. My husband has been working at a relative small factory for about 15 years, but seemingly not skilled enough. He's still earning a mere $900 a month as a trainee. I've repeatedly expressed that $900 isn't nearly enough to live on, but he turns a deaf ear. Having never worked part-time as a student or gained experience elsewhere, he firmly believes he's doing enough as a provider. Left with no choice, I've been working hard to support our family. Recently, my efforts were recognized, and I was honored with a promotion, but with it came an increase in workload and often overtime. I was being overwhelmed with the demands of balancing work and household chores, yet my husband showed no concern or effort to help. The next day after finishing work, I returned home to find my husband sitting sulkily with his arms crossed. "Hello?" I greeted him. He glared at me and bellowed back. "You forgot already? I told you just yesterday to have dinner ready and greet me when I return. You're really useless." "I said it before, we both work. When I come home late, you, as an adult, can manage something like buying ready-made meals, can't you, Paul?" As I reasoned, my husband sighed dramatically. "Ugh, married you thinking I hit the jackpot with a moderately attractive woman with her own house and no annoying in-laws. Turns out you're just a washed-up hag. You don't care about your appearance anymore, and I can't find a single good thing about you. How dare you? Is that all I am to you?" I frowned, and he continued unabashedly. "What's wrong with choosing a spouse based on certain conditions? You fell for me because I was kind to you, right? My act of a gentle gentleman was convincing, wasn't it?" "I was completely fooled," I replied sarcastically, and he said smugly, "Right? Maybe I should take up acting. As for you, even a bit of effort to keep your husband interested would help. But the way you neglect yourself on weekends, I can't stand it anymore. A wife ugly and useless at housework deserves to be served with divorce papers, don't you think?" He then headed towards the door, and I followed him calling out, "Where are you going?" He turned with a sardonic smile. "I'm leaving this house for a while. It's all your fault, so I'm taking all our savings. I won't return until you apologize sincerely and realize what it's like without me, the man of the house. Think hard about it." He left me standing there dumbfounded. The savings he took were meant for our future children, which I had been diligently saving despite his unreliable income. I thought we shared the dream of building a warm family, but that was my misconception. All I could muster was a dry laugh of disbelief. 3 months later, on my day off lounging at home, my phone rang unexpectedly. It was my husband. "Hello?" I answered, and he spoke cheerily. "Abigail, long time no see. Have you reflected yet? Without me, the head of the household, you must have had a hard time. If you repent and dedicate yourself to me, I might consider coming back home." "I haven't been struggling at all, and I certainly don't want you back. Besides, I sold my family home and it's gone now, so where do you plan to return to?" As I calmly responded, my clueless husband became flustered and exclaimed, "What? Don't be ridiculous. Even if it was my home too, why would you do something like that without consulting me?" "I'm not joking. There's a plan to build a large shopping mall in the area, and they approached us a while ago for a buyout. Everyone in the neighborhood agreed, and it made no sense for us to stubbornly refuse. The house was old, but we got a good deal, above market value." As I explained, my husband suddenly became verbose. "If we got money, then fine. Since we sold our house, that money's partly mine, right? Give me the new address. You've had time to reflect, right? It must be hard without me, the head of the household." "No, I haven't been struggling at all. I see no reason to repent, and I've been quite comfortable without you around. Let's take this opportunity to divorce." My decisiveness panicked him. "Why does it come to this? I earn $900 a month. You should be struggling without me. Isn't it harder for you without the head of the household?" I sighed at his naivety and patiently corrected him. "Actually, I've been the one supporting our finances. I earn far more than you, still a trainee after 15 years. Last month, I earned about $4,000. You're under my care, yet you delude yourself as the breadwinner. You probably want to get rid of your ugly and useless wife, right? Well, it's mutual. Your leaving was the wake-up call I needed. For that, I'm thankful." His voice quivered as he pleaded. "Wait, please. I didn't mean what I said. It was just in the heat of the moment. I probed, testing him. Really? Then where have you been since you left? Caught off guard, he stuttered. Business hotels, you know? Don't lie, I know everything. I've had suspicions about your affairs, especially these past 3 months. You've been gallivanting around. It wasn't hard to find evidence. College girls, shop clerks, aspiring models, and wealthy madams. His infidelity had become apparent soon after marriage, but with my busy work and home life, I never had the time to dwell on it. Once, when my husband fell asleep with his phone open, I accidentally saw that he was using a dating app. Later, I casually registered and sent a message to my husband, which he read and replied to instantly. Pretending to be a 23-year-old dental assistant, I engaged him in conversation. I want to meet you. I need your hugs to heal. What color is your underwear today? He began sending increasingly nauseating messages. Disgusted after discovering his deceit, I deleted the app immediately. As I confronted him, he brazenly claimed, "Infidelity is a man's nature. Wouldn't you be prouder of a popular husband than a dull one? Be grateful that someone desired by women married you." Are you serious? A man earning just $900 a month speaking of pride? And you, barely contributing to our finances while demanding $800 as your allowance. You realize you contribute less than a child's allowance, right? All this, men earn, women tend the home. Yet you do neither. Chasing after women has really addled your brain, hasn't it? Frustrated by my disdain. Enough! A little affair and you make a big deal out of it. I can't stand a nagging woman like you. We're getting a divorce. And remember, I'm entitled to half of everything, including the money from selling our house, he retorted. I agreed to the divorce, but you're mistaken about the house. It's mine, inherited from my parents, not subject to property division. I've paid all related taxes and maintenance. You've never contributed to it. Stunned, he paused, then asked in panic. So I'll lose the house and get nothing after the divorce? It's worse than that. Remember Ava, the wife of Chief Williams? From the other end of the phone, I heard his breath hitch in shock. I was astonished when I found out you were involved with her too. The president was furious when I reported it. They were lenient because you're family, but now they regret not firing you sooner. You told them? How could you betray your own husband? What will I do if I'm fired? My husband ranted at me, but I stood my ground. I won't be your wife anymore. It's none of my concern. I married you believing you were kind. Even with your meager $900 salary, I believed we could build a warm home together. Instead, you indulged in affairs, hurling insults, and ultimately withdrew all of our savings for your escapade, which is despicable. I'll demand alimony for your continuous abuse and infidelity, and you'll return the misused savings. From now on, deal with the lawyer. With that, I hung up without waiting for his reply. He tried calling back multiple times, but I ignored him and eventually turned off my phone. On the answering machine were messages tinged with tears. I was wrong. Please, let's start over. But I ignored them all. Subsequently, he was fired due to his affair with the boss's wife, shamed by both the president and our relatives. Persistent harassment towards a classmate's wife also led to his friends ostracizing him. Despite his tantrums, with the help of a lawyer, we divorced smoothly. The in-laws initially covered the alimony and embezzled savings, with him repaying monthly. After our divorce, my ex-husband attempted to return to his parents' home, but they refused him entry, saying, "We don't mind the repayments being transferred. Just don't ever come back to our house." And apparently they cut ties with him. Now he's rumored to be living in destitution, wrapped in cardboard by the river, scavenging through trash, scorned by passers-by. Post-divorce, I delved deeper into work and was promoted to lead a significant company project. I threw myself more into work, and the project was a huge success. Many people from the company were involved, regardless of gender. Unlike my ex-husband, there was no one with male chauvinistic thinking. Everyone cooperated and worked together as a team. At the celebratory party, I resolved to continue striving for a better society. Years later, I fulfilled that resolution, founding my own company and becoming its CEO, focusing on non-discriminatory work environments. My company encourages paternity leaves, with over 90% uptake this year. I'm determined to continue working towards a better society. My former colleagues, while initially reluctant to let me go, ultimately supported my decision, knowing my resolve. My company is now a beacon of equality, promoting work-life balance for all.
I want a large room, about 200 square feet. Emma exclaims, her enthusiasm met with a grumble from her stepbrother. While I was unpacking, catching the interaction between the two out of the corner of my eye, he called out to me in a teasing tone. Hey, no complaining even if you're not happy. Remember, it's divorce if you oppose me. They're over the moon about their new house, oblivious to its secrets. Seeing their joy, I can't help but feel pity and decide to reveal the truth. My name is Mia Smith. I'm a 35-year-old illustrator. I have a twin sister. Her name is Charlotte. She, like me, is also an illustrator but also works as a manga artist. I work as an illustrator, and in the gaps between, I also take on another job. While the other job might technically be my main profession, my passion lies in illustration, so I often refer to that as my primary occupation. My twin sister, Charlotte, and I are identical in every way, from our faces to our figures. We're so alike that even our parents struggle to tell us apart. It was to the point where they'd get confused and frustrated, a perfect example of how identical we were. In the past, we used to exploit this similarity for pranks. We'd switch places for tests or trick adults by making them guess who was who. This lifestyle changed when our father scolded us severely. You weren't born twins to make people feel bad. He scolded us that we were scolded for being born to support each other, not to cause trouble, so we stopped doing things that would bother people. Seeing the sad faces of our father and mother at that time made us realize that we were truly doing something wrong. Since then, we've never used our identical appearance to hurt anyone. It's a sign that we've grown up. I'm single, while Charlotte is married. I'm cautious when it comes to seeing men as romantic prospects, but Charlotte has always been more inclined towards love. She has often been deceived by the wrong guys, turning to me for comfort. However, her current husband is a great guy and understands her personality and career and cares deeply for our family. His name is Jack Johnson. They met through a friend, and Charlotte fell for his sincerity and kindness. Jack has a daughter, Emma, from his previous marriage. He had to take her in after his ex-wife pushed her onto him. Initially, this made me feel uneasy. How do you feel about saying she was pushed onto you? Emma is your precious daughter, isn't she? You're right. She's more important to me than my own life. But Emma is a girl, and with my job requiring frequent travel, the house often ends up empty. Being a man, I thought she'd be better off with her mother. I figured it's better for her to feel loved by her mother than to be lonely with me. Back then, I wasn't confident about raising her on my own. As my brother-in-law spoke of his complex circumstances, his face contorted with emotion, I apologized. I had hurt him by speaking subjectively without fully understanding his family situation. I also apologized to Charlotte. I regretted asking unpleasant questions after she introduced me to her husband. However, they both forgave my rudeness. It's natural for you to be worried, Mia. You're concerned that Charlotte's husband might not be treating Emma right. Especially since Charlotte is such a kind-hearted person. You must have been worried she might fall for the wrong guy. She must have had her concerns too, but she never asked for details, probably not wanting to trouble him. Hearing our conversation today must have reassured you a bit, right? At first, I was worried just like you, Mia. But seeing Jack with Emma, all my worries disappeared. I know better than anyone how much he cares for her. Their laughter and happiness made me realize my meddling was unnecessary. They will be fine. They're strong together and can overcome anything. While I'm happy Charlotte found someone she can rely on, I can't help feeling a bit lonely. Charlotte, who used to come to me for everything, saying big sister, is no longer here. I feel like my role as an elder sister is over, leaving me with a sense of emptiness. But seeing Charlotte happy is what matters most to me. Feeling this sincerely, I implored him, please, take good care of Charlotte. In response, he promised, I will cherish her for life. We then chatted about casual things. Jack shared more about Emma and the circumstances of his divorce. His job kept him so busy that he couldn't be involved in household chores or childcare. Jack said that the inability to spend quality time together as a couple led to strains in our marriage, ultimately resulting in divorce. As I climbed the career ladder, I became more work-oriented, putting a lot of burden on my wife. He confessed, acknowledging that it was understandable why she left him. But when the conversation shifted to Emma, his face lit up with a father's pride. She might be a bit of a mischief maker, but she's essentially an honest, lovable child. I think you, Mia, would get along well with her. Saying this, my brother-in-law showed his doting parent side, which made me smile involuntarily. Seeing Jack's devotion to his family reassured me that he would take good care of Charlotte. If Charlotte is happy, that's all that matters to me. From then on, I decided not to interfere in their lives unnecessarily. That was until the day Charlotte came to me in tears. It was a day of heavy rain, so intense that the weather forecast had issued a flood warning. I didn't expect any visitors and was leisurely working at home when suddenly the doorbell rang. It wasn't a delivery, nor had our parents mentioned visiting. If it were Charlotte, she would have called in advance. Wondering who it could be on such a day, I cautiously checked the intercom and saw Charlotte, drenched in the rain. It's the first time that Charlotte, who usually contacts me in advance, has visited my house without any prior notice. I hurried to the door, and as soon as I opened it, Charlotte threw her arms around me.
Charlotte, what's wrong? You're soaking wet. Big sister, help me.
I was confused by her sudden emotional outburst in the entrance of my apartment. Living in an apartment complex, this was the entrance area. Understandably, loud crying could potentially disturb the neighbors. For starters, I invited a drenched Charlotte into my apartment, fetched a bath towel from the bathroom, and told her to wipe her face and body dry. First, let's dry your hair. I'll also make you something warm to drink. It had been ages since Charlotte had come to me like this, crying for help. This scene, so familiar from our childhood, had become rare over the years. Usually, when Charlotte was this distraught, it meant she was in a tough spot. Charlotte, who's not good at leaning on others, only seeks help when she's reached her limit. Was something wrong at home? While these worries grew in my heart, I first prepared to warm her up. After getting the bath ready and making sure she was warmed up, I called her out. She obediently followed me. She seemed more relaxed after the bath, returning to the living room where I placed a warm cup of coffee in front of her. What happened? For you to come to my place without any notice, it must be something serious, right? I gently asked Charlotte, who was calming down while sipping her coffee. At my words, tears welled up in her eyes again, but she held them back as she explained. Actually, Jack has been acting strange lately. Charlotte spoke with such seriousness, and upon closer inspection, her face appeared worn and exhausted. Since moving in with Jack, Charlotte had been juggling housework and her job. Emma was still a high school student and required a lot of attention. Charlotte works from home, and told she was left with almost all the household responsibilities. I knew I'd be taking care of the house because of his previous marriage, but he's been pushing all the housework onto me, and it's getting harder to manage my work. Charlotte, who has never raised a child before, seems to be having quite busy days. She's handling daily lunch preparations, washing sports uniforms, and getting school materials ready. But she initially tried to cope, thinking it's part of being a wife. However, the household chores asked by Jack and Emma kept increasing. At first, it was really just the typical household chores any wife would do. But gradually, it turned into preparing things for Jack's work, getting Emma ready for school, and it even escalated to running errands, giving massages, and being ordered around to fetch things. Both started to look down on her for working from home, with Jack even resorting to emotional abuse, saying, "I'm the one providing for you." Charlotte was told that as long as she didn't contribute financially, she had to obey Jack and Emma unconditionally. If Charlotte defied him, it'll mean immediate divorce. This way, they controlled her, pushing her into a corner. Emma seemed nice at first, but when Jack started treating me like this, she began to see me more like a servant. Charlotte described how Emma would complain about even minor things forgotten in her school preparation and continuously criticized the food. The only time she felt appreciated was in the first few days after their marriage. Overwhelmed by the unfairness, Charlotte asked Emma to do some things for herself, only to be met with cold stares and scolding. "Charlotte, you're just sitting at home with your remote work, right? I'm giving you tasks to do. Yet, how can you look so stressed? Dad's much busier and has it tougher. How can you even show a tired face? It's unbelievable. Aren't you being provided for by Dad?" That night, Emma reported this to Jack, and Charlotte faced his wrath. Since then, she never dared to ask Emma to do anything. Fearing that Jack would find out and mentally corner her further, Charlotte endured in silence. Our job as illustrators depends a lot on our mental state. Whether I can work effectively or not is greatly influenced by my mental state. When I'm mentally drained, there are times I can't draw anything for even a week. She confessed to me, in tears, that the constant scolding and fear had made her afraid to even pick up her brush. Unable to create satisfactory work, she felt she was letting her clients down. Since then, Charlotte had been enduring a life she feared would become unbearable. She continued to make lunches for Emma, which she didn't even want to make, and took care of Jack's work preparations, all the while trying to avoid any sort of conflict. She shared how she spent her days always on edge, trying not to anger Emma or Jack. But instead of gratitude, they began criticizing her work, adding to her misery. "Why is the lunchbox filled with just frozen food? I tell everyone at school that I make my own lunch. Charlotte, you need to help keep up this act. If they find out it's frozen food, I'll be embarrassed at school. Emma will be the odd one out. This dress shirt's collar is stretched. Can't you even iron properly?" The previous wife would have done this perfectly. The Jack and Emma I knew before the marriage seemed like entirely different people. I had thought Emma was such a kind and sweet girl until she and Charlotte got together. But now, the reality was starkly different. It was almost like a fraud, and I couldn't hide my shock at the story.
What should I do? I'm scared to be with them. I don't want to go back to that house.
Charlotte clung to me, crying. I felt a surge of anger. It was unforgivable. Treating my dear sister this way, using her as a punching bag for stress relief, I just couldn't stand it. I gently hugged Charlotte, stroking her hair to comfort her. "It's okay. I will definitely help you." I was determined to pull her away from Jack and protect her from those demons. But how? I pondered over how I could be of any help to Charlotte. That's when my eyes fell on an elementary school album. It reminded me of the time when we were scolded by Dad for mischief, right before our graduation, with photos of our pranks included. An idea struck me, and I proposed something unexpected to Charlotte. "Remember the switcheroo we used to do in elementary school?" "Yeah, but why?"
"Let's do it. You and I will switch places for a month. I'll live in that house as you, and you go to our parents' house, explain everything, and convince them. You want to end things with him, right? Are you serious? If Jack and Emma find out we've switched, who knows what they'll do to you?"
"I'll be okay. There's no way they'll find out. But to do this, Charlotte, you need to be prepared. This will most likely lead to a divorce. Are you ready for that? Do you have the resolve to leave him? I advised Charlotte to think about herself for once. It was a sudden plan. She needed time to sort her feelings, and asked for some time to think and left. Even after returning home, Charlotte's life continued to be like hellish slavery, and it seemed her anger had reached its limit. She later contacted me, wanting to go ahead with our plan. Since I had a major event in a month, the timing seemed perfect, so we decided to execute the plan. I'll take care of the rest. We swapped the essentials while Jack and Emma were out, and Charlotte went back to our parents' house. I proceeded to cancel my apartment lease, ready to start the switcheroo. Within a month, I planned to gather evidence to favor Charlotte in the divorce and show those two a piece of hell. They had hurt my dear sister. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. That night, the first incident happened.
What the hell is this with the bath?
Jack bellowed as I was having dinner with Emma. Jack always takes a shower as soon as he gets back from work. He used to instruct to have the shower running before he arrived home to warm up the bathroom. What? Leave the shower running? Isn't that a waste of water? His dissatisfaction with just a minor bath preparation mistake was beyond my comprehension.
What? Are you stupid? It's obvious that you should start the shower right before I get home to warm up the bathroom. How many times do I have to say I want to shower immediately when I get back? You're useless.
His words were harsher than I expected. Just for a small mistake in preparing the bath, Charlotte had been enduring such harsh treatment. And what did he mean by exactly? I had no idea when he would be home. While thinking this, I forced a smile and simply replied, "I'm sorry." "What's with you today? You're creeping me out," Emma remarked, suspicious of my demeanor. "Huh? You usually get scared and can't do anything when Dad yells at you. What's with that smile? It's really creepy." The crucial difference between Charlotte and me was apparent. Charlotte dislikes being scolded or seeing conflicts, being a peace lover. On the contrary, I have a fiery temperament and don't hesitate to confront, even men. I enjoy watching wrestling, cheer during soccer brawls. And I have dabbled in mixed martial arts. I couldn't comprehend being intimidated by a man like Jack. But Charlotte must have been trembling at even a slight reprimand. To convincingly impersonate her, I realized I needed to act more frightened. Hastily, I masked my confusion with a troubled smile and distractedly began to clear the dishes. "It's nothing, maybe you're just imagining things, Emma." I realized that I need to pretend to be frightened even if I don't feel it, as Emma is surprisingly observant. Jack seemed rather dim, so I might get through a month with him. But Emma could prove to be a challenge. I had Charlotte detail her daily routine, thoroughly simulating to become her. The more I learned, the more evident it became that Charlotte lived like a servant. Waking up at 5 a.m. to prepare lunches, sending them off. Squeezing in work during any free time, and hardly having any time for herself. Charlotte did all the shopping, and it was unthinkable for Jack or Emma to do any household chores. Charlotte would meticulously check Emma's belongings, finding and preparing everything she needed from her school prints. Since Emma always wants to shower first, Charlotte had to finish cleaning the bath and have it ready before Emma returned. Emma seems to be particular about cleanliness and is apparently very fussy when it comes to cleaning. The slightest bit of dust could lead to her yelling and complaining all day long. Jack would reprimand Charlotte if his beer wasn't chilled. And since their food preferences and meal times differed, she had to prepare separate meals. The one time she served a shared meal, both berated her. This lifestyle was unbearable for me. I'd have left within 3 days, but Charlotte endured it for a year. Why did she stay? It was because of our parents. Jack really takes care of our parents. He comes home with me every weekend when he's not on business trips and even wants to help them move into a nursing home since their health isn't great. I know our parents are grateful, so I thought if I just endured, no one else would get hurt. Jack, earning over $200,000, knew Charlotte cared for our aging parents in a cramped apartment. He offered to look after them in exchange for her compliance. Charlotte is kind. Given this situation, Charlotte couldn't refuse Jack's conditions, and he seemed to know this. Seeing how happy our parents are, I couldn't say anything. I couldn't admit I was suffering. Jack's method, akin to holding our parents hostage, revolted me. He knew Charlotte's character and exploited it, treating her like a puppet. I had always wondered why Jack could be so harsh with Charlotte and why Emma treated her like a servant. But now, understanding their dynamics, it was clear that the kind-hearted Charlotte couldn't possibly stand up to them. Everything made sense, and knowing the truth, I was shaking with anger. I will never forgive them. What? I muttered to myself, to which Charlotte, on the other end of the phone, gasped in surprise. Don't worry, Charlotte. I won't let those demons, who took advantage of your kindness, get away with this. Rest assured, I won't let you suffer any longer. I declared this as if to convince myself, determined to endure this hellish month for Charlotte. Driven by the sole desire to help Charlotte, I endured the harassment from Jack and Emma, and though I was physically and mentally exhausted from the anger, I somehow held on, looking forward to the big event that was scheduled for a month later. And finally, the awaited month passed. I never expected Charlotte would buy a house like this. Really, I wasn't counting on your property at all. I never even thought about buying a new house. They marveled as they unpacked the furniture. I smiled broadly at them. I wanted to surprise you too as a thank you for everything you do. Despite my sarcastic tone, the clueless pair didn't seem to notice. They were probably too captivated by the new, fully built house we were in. They were constantly looking around as they unpacked. I had signed the contract for this house before canceling my previous one, and naturally, I hadn't consulted them at all, which initially infuriated them. What do you mean you signed the contract without asking me, the head of the family? Where did you get the money for this?
If I knew we were building a new house, I would have wanted to be involved in the layout planning. I won't forgive you if it's not stylish.
Although they were initially furious about me acting independently, as soon as they saw the layout and the projected image of the house, their eyes lit up with excitement.
Wow, Charlotte, you have good taste. A backyard and a bathroom with a skylight to see the stars, that's so chic and amazing. The location isn't bad either, and it'll shorten my commute to work.
It was purely coincidental, not done for them. But if they wanted to misunderstand, it worked in my favor. I'm impressive, aren't I? I boasted with a sniff, feeling proud as I began the remaining work. They must have been shocked that Charlotte had such a significant amount of money. Jack, believing he had the financial upper hand, never bothered about her finances. He even told her to earn her own way for anything she needed, looking down on her income. They must be astounded that a woman they underestimated had such wealth. I could easily guess they might start plotting to get their hands on it. But I wouldn't let that happen. This was the end of their hellish treatment of Charlotte. Hiding my joy at finally being able to free Charlotte, I struggled to contain my elation. Meanwhile, Jack and Emma excitedly discussed room assignments.
I want a large room, about 200 square feet. Emma, that's not fair. I wanted that room too.
They mistook the house as their own, gleefully making plans. As I chuckled at them, they looked at me as if wondering what was going on. What's so funny all of a sudden? You're weird. Charlotte probably thinks it's strange for you to have that room, Dad. You just don't suit it, that's why she laughed, right? Nonsense. Charlotte is my wife, she wouldn't dare defy me. Remember, it's divorce if you do. Watching them laugh carelessly, I let out a loud laugh myself. You too, what exactly are you misunderstanding here? Huh? This is my house, not yours. What are you talking about? Have you finally lost your mind? I'm perfectly sane and not broken at all. I just don't understand why you two think you're living in this house. Why wouldn't we? I'm the husband and Emma is the daughter. It's only natural for us to live together. Huh? I'm single. Who exactly have you been mistaking me for all this time? At that moment, they looked at each other, completely baffled by the situation. Just then, a car pulled up in front of the house, and out stepped Charlotte and our parents.
Sis, congratulations on your new house.
We've heard everything from Charlotte. Hello, Jack and Emma. That's Charlotte over there, this is Mia, isn't it? What is everyone talking about? Jack and Emma were completely perplexed, their faces a picture of comical confusion. They looked around at everyone, sweat beading on their foreheads. Our parents and Charlotte stared at them with cold, stern gazes, their eyes full of disapproval. I'm surprised Jack can't even recognize his own wife. No eye for women, huh? At that moment, I let my hair down and removed my glasses. I had been in disguise to make it less noticeable, but Charlotte and I had switched places. Standing next to Charlotte, I revealed a smug smile and disclosed everything that had happened to date. I'm Mia, and this is Charlotte. The person you've been living with this past month was me. Surprise.
What?
Jack exclaimed in shock. Emma, on the other hand, was still trying to comprehend the situation, standing there with her mouth agape. This house was built with my money for me and our parents. Charlotte consulted me a month ago about the issues with you two. That's when I proposed this switcheroo plan. They looked utterly ridiculous, and I couldn't help but smirk. Finally, I could speak my mind. There couldn't be a more satisfying moment than this. Jack, unlike the timid Charlotte, was clearly uncomfortable around me, a woman who is more assertive. He lacked the confidence to verbally spar with me, and he was intimidated by my background in martial arts. Now realizing who he had been dealing with, he visibly recoiled in fear. He was physically recoiling, distancing themselves from me. Really, you two have been doing as you please for this whole month, haven't you? I'm the type who pays back what's been done to me. Are you two prepared for that? Jack, who had always underestimated me, was now trembling in fear, clearly aware that he was no match for me. Contrasting Jack's fright, Emma, still not fully grasping the situation, began to snap back. Wait, why did you switch places without telling us? Isn't that illegal entry? It's no problem since I had Charlotte's permission. That house was under her contract, after all. Jack and Emma had moved into Charlotte's place. It was because it was more convenient for commuting and better suited for their needs than their own house. Can you not say such terrible things about illegal entry? The landlord gave permission. But how can you not discuss such important matters with your family? Do you even care that you're married to Dad? Exactly. You've invaded our privacy. Influenced by Emma's defiant attitude, Jack, though still fearful of me, tried to argue back. I fixed a sharp gaze on him and took out my phone to show them a video. If you're talking about invasion of privacy, what about all the human rights violations you've committed against me? I showed them footage secretly recorded by a hidden camera, capturing their numerous misdeeds. This included recordings of verbal abuse and even instances where they threw objects at me, barely missing. Realizing they were in a disadvantaged situation, they panicked. What? You've been secretly recording us? That's a crime. Don't be ridiculous. Charlotte set up these cameras for security in her own house. It's not illegal. But making such decisions without consulting us, how is that acceptable as a human being? You're one to talk about ethics. Hearing my brother-in-law's words, my anger exploded, and I raised my voice in a shout so fierce that it silenced both of them. After all the harassment you've put Charlotte through, how dare you speak so self-righteously? And Jack, you approached Charlotte only for our parents' inheritance, didn't you? The next video showed Jack and Emma smirking and talking when they thought I wasn't around. When are you going to divorce that woman? I wanted a younger, more beautiful mom. We have no choice. She's worthless, but her parents own that valuable land. I've checked with a real estate friend, just selling that parking lot will bring in a huge sum. Their target was our parents' inheritance, a property passed down from our grandparents, which our parents had managed and lived on. The inheritance from our parents came from our grandparents, and they had managed and lived in that property with care. However, since the house didn't have any accessibility features, it became hard for them to keep living there. So, they moved to a smaller apartment that was more suitable for just the two of them. I heard they're now renting out the house to a friend. To think there was such a deceitful intention behind that help, my parents said, outraged upon learning the truth. When they heard about the plan, they insisted on coming with Charlotte to confront them. We've been grateful for your help, but to think you had such motives. We were underestimated. Fortunately, we never used the money you sent us. My father, coldly confronting Jack, placed a large bag in front of them. This contains all the money you've sent us. What? Jack was shocked to see the money he had sent over time. We've lived without touching that money, planning to return it upon our passing, as arranged with our lawyer friend. They were mindful of their uncertain health in the future. Considering their healthy lifespan, they had implored a lawyer acquaintance to take custody of their wills, updating them annually.
How dare you treat our daughter this way? We'll never forgive you for hurting Charlotte.
Jack and Emma, intimidated and cornered by us, desperately looked for an escape. But there was none, and my mother, standing firmly at the door, blocked their way. Where do you think you're going now? If you're thinking of going back to your house, it's pointless. We've already left your belongings outside, and Charlotte has canceled the lease. There's no going back. What? You threw our stuff out. Hearing this, Jack and Emma pushed my mother aside from the entrance and rushed out the front door. They were dumbstruck by the sight of boxes piled up outside. This is our family home. Why would we let outsiders' belongings inside? Unpacking your stuff was really helpful. Of course, it doesn't compare to the torture you've put us through this month. Thanks for playing right into our plan, I added sarcastically as Emma looked on, her face twisted in frustration. Realizing they had been completely outmaneuvered, they collapsed to the ground, frantically begging Charlotte for help.
Charlotte, please! Help us! We have nowhere to go! If we have to sleep outside in this freezing winter, we might die!
It was January. The heart of winter in Alaska, where everything was buried in a silver world of snow. Sleeping outside was akin to willingly risking one's life. However, I was indifferent to their plight. Why don't you build a snow hut and try to survive the cold? While I taunted them with sarcastic remarks, they glared back as if to silence me. Their desperate situation seemed almost comical to me. Emma and Jack, realizing arguing with me was futile, turned to Charlotte, begging at her feet with tears in their eyes. Charlotte kept her face down, not looking at them, and refrained from speaking. She's inherently kind-hearted, unlike me. I worried if she had begun to sympathize with them or was having second thoughts. As I was consumed by a fleeting moment of doubt, I was just about to ask her what was wrong. Charlotte raised her head, broke free from their grasp, and confronted them with stern words.
I want nothing to do with people like you anymore. We're getting a divorce. I've recorded everything, including the way you've treated me, and I'll be sure to claim a substantial alimony.
She was usually compliant, so her unexpected defiance left Jack and Emma speechless, surprised by her sudden strength. This was the first time she'd ever spoken back so harshly. Breathless with excitement, Charlotte seemed to surprise even herself. I couldn't help but laugh, feeling proud of her growth. Well said, Charlotte. Be prepared, you too. I won't forgive you for what you've done to my family. There's no apology that can make up for it. My words crushed their last bit of resistance, leaving them in tears and a state of shock. Thus, Charlotte was successfully freed from Jack and his daughter. They tried to reach out to Charlotte for help, but my father turned them away at the door, and a lawyer we hired swiftly initiated the divorce process. Thanks to the excellent lawyer, the divorce and alimony claims were handled efficiently. Afterward, Jack and Emma were left without a place in the community. In a small town like ours, news travels fast, and their bad reputation spread quickly. Their bad reputation had spread throughout the neighborhood, and I heard from Charlotte that Emma was now infamous at school, labeled as a troublemaker, making it impossible for her to continue living in our town. Having successfully severed ties with them, we are now living happily and peacefully. Charlotte moved in with us and is thriving as a successful comic artist.